The way that as a coach, as those guys that I respected, the coaches that I wanted to be like, the men that I wanted to be like, it was love, trust, and confidence. That's how you replace fear.
None of us become who we're meant to be alone. Every story has people who helped write it. So let's talk about them. Welcome to the Mentor Sessions.
Hey, welcome back to the Mentor Sessions. I'm here today in studio with my good friend Mike Martin. Mike is he's a good dude. He's been a long time coach. He's coached a lot of young men and young women too, in a varied variety of sports. So, Mike, welcome. Thank you for coming back and sharing with us your story and your coaching philosophies. We're excited to hear from you. Why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right. Well, just turned 60.
Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thanks. There were times in my 20s when I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. Actually, times in my 50s when I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, just because in some form, I had lost my purpose. So, kind of returning to the coaching side of things has really kind of helped me get back into being really who I was, when I really was setting the example and living the way that I should.
What does that look like when you say you lost your purpose? What does that mean to you?
It looks like 271 pounds on the scale. I'm most comfortable around 200 or below. And about probably 271 days ago, I was I went in for a physical, and the guy was like 271, and it was just absolutely ridiculous that I was at 271, because I swore that I was to my wife, Margie, I was like, hey, can you not dry my clothes so long? Because they're not fitting me anymore. They're starting to shrink.
Obviously the dryer's fault, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I was getting ready to go to a former player's wedding, and we're here in Boise, and we're getting ready to drive out in a couple of days. And so I'm trying to get my clothes, and I don't have anything that fits me in the closet anymore because my wife had dried things too long. And so I messaged him. I was like, hey, do you expect people to wear pants? And he's like, I've never known you to wear anything other than shorts. So I'm like, off the hook. We get to the Airbnb, and we're there, and they had one of those funhouse mirrors. And I stood in front of the mirror, and I turned sideways, like, I was like, this thing is so off. It's making me look fat. And I was still in denial. There's so many levels to my denial. I was down about a year ago. I was down at LSU. A friend is a coach there, and he gave me a tour of the facilities. I'm going through the locker room, and I get to the Heisman Trophy, Joe Burrow's Heisman Trophy. And I go to take a picture of it, and I guess I hadn't updated my phone, because the selfie that I was trying to take of me with Joe Burrow's Heisman, there was this guy staring back at me that I didn't recognize. And I was like, I must need to update my camera because it's throwing my face off. It's making me look like I'm not the Mike that I recognized in there. So it was the camera's fault.
So what do you think put you in a place to cause that weight gain on you?
One is I got out of coach. In 2019, I was rushed to the hospital, and they said, you're going through organ failure. And I was like, what? The doctor said, we think you're about a quarter of a kidney function. And it was a what moment? And I'm completely healthy. The night before, I ran a bunch of former players into the ground. I'm 52 years old, and I ran them into the ground. And I'm like, let's go let's do another game. They're like, no, we're tired. And I'm like, you're a bunch of babies. And so the next day, I'm like in peak physical condition, especially for somebody that was 52, but just for anybody to be able to run hard for 2 hours. So the doctor was like, we think you're going through organ failure. Ran a bunch of tests, nothing. They never figured out anything that was wrong with me. Well, then the pandemic hit. Okay. And I had stopped doing a bunch of the physical activity that I was doing, and I put on probably my eating habits didn't change. And so I put on probably, I'm going to say 10 or 15 pounds. And my bad habits that were masked by my physical endurance that I would do every week. I'd do 2 days a week where I was just running kids into the ground. And then my eating habits didn't change. I was still eating a bunch of sugar and a bunch of chips and processed stuff. And I would go down to the store and I was still eating the same way. Well, then the pandemic hit and everything was shut down. We were living in Washington State. Everything was shut down. So just when I was like ready to go back to working out, I couldn't go work out. So then my bad habits continued, but then my exercise was not there. And so I went to, probably another 30 pounds. I was probably at 240 by that time, in complete denial. Okay. I went from buying larges to extra larges. Somehow the stuff is made in a foreign country where they don't understand our sizes. Okay. So, it was the manufacturer's fault that I was having to now buy extra large. I had to just roll my eyes at my
Denial.
denial.
It's funny because back when I was in the law enforcement, when our awards banquet would come up, we'd get a message. I think it was the sheriff who sent it out, but I could be wrong. About how, hey, make sure you get your Class A's taken care of. We all know that uniforms shrink in the closet over time, and yeah, it's the same. I know the effect all too well, unfortunately, and I'm working on my own weight and stuff and my health, because it gets to a point where you realize you need to be healthy, less for aesthetics, but more for the people around you, the life around you. I needed to be healthy when I was on the job, and I wasn't always healthy. And for me, that was a lot more related to using food as a crutch. In fact, when I worked in custody and the inmates would try to use it and call me offensive names regarding my size, I would shut them down by just saying, we all have our issues. My issues are extremely unhealthy. They're not illegal, but they're unhealthy. Your issues are the same thing, but they're illegal. And you've got to figure out how to deal with them too, and I have to figure out how to deal with mine. And I always found that to be kind of an interesting look on it, and that's kind of what would help me get my stuff back together. Like, okay, wait, I have to set the example for them by showing I was dealing with my issues. So I get what you're saying there.
Yeah. So for me to kind of return to your question, you asked what the purpose. So over um the next several years, up until it was probably 271 days ago, um it was the funhouse mirror. It was all of these things. And the trip to Louisiana came before the trip to, uh, to Washington for the wedding. And so it was, it was a, it was even worse. I don't even know what a selfie would have looked like when we were at the wedding. But I know what the shorts that I wore had this. I had to get some. I had some nice looking shorts, but they had the drawstring that I could tie, so I could adjust that to my weight. And really, when I was standing at the doctor's office, and he said that I was 271 pounds. I knew that I had been heavy and I'd been trying to lose weight. And the word trying is such a defeatist word. I wasn't losing weight. I was trying to lose weight. I probably got up to 280 when I started. I'd lost weight and then I went for a physical. I was 271. And I was all hyped up thinking I probably was maybe at 250 and I've been losing weight. I might be at 240. Man, that it's like he punched me in the stomach. My 271-pound stomach. And as I drove home, I made the decision that I was going to stop. But when I was before that, I was just in a bad spot where I had really lost my purpose. I wasn't coaching.
COVID in a way is related to that because you went from being active and being with the boys or, the athletes, I think is probably the better way to put that. But then you got out of coaching and you say you lost your purpose, and that was that drive that you lost, that drive to coach, that drive to be with those people.
The drive was that I wouldn't tell my players something that I hadn't done or couldn't do.
Right.
Okay. It's like when I was in Ohio as coaching this baseball team, and one of my players, I never yell at a player and try to reduce them by yelling or swearing or anything like that. But one of my players let a fly ball drop in front of him, or maybe it went over his head, and he could have, if he had dove, he could have caught it if he'd put a little bit more effort into it. So I got somebody up there to hit the ball for me there. Oh, and he was like, "Why don't you show me how to do it?" And so, because he swore that was a ball that he couldn't get, and so he said it in a joking way, like, "Come on, old man," because I was probably 45 at the time, and he was probably like, "Oh, come on, old man, you couldn't do it. Why do I have to do it?" So I told my hitter, I was like, "Okay, I want you to hit the ball out there as far as you can, and I'm going to show these kids how to chase down a ball and dive for it." Okay. And so the dude hit it further than he should have. And I don't know if he was doing it because he was on the side of the players or to really challenge me, but it turned out to be a challenge. And so I went out there and I dove for a ball that was like way over my head, and I pulled it in. And so that's always how I've been, where I've wanted to model for my players that I'm not telling you something that I haven't done, that I can't do, or I won't do.
I won't ask you to do something that I won't be willing to try myself. I get that. I understand that.
So when I got out of showing it to the kids, that's where my purpose, I thought I was getting out of coaching, where I actually got out of my purpose. Because there are two guys in my life, Nick Kruger and Russ Grant, and they were guys when I grew up really without a father, and those were two guys that really when I got missed or when I was at a crossroads, okay, they were the one that was like the hand on my shoulder, and I'm at the road is either going to go this way or this way, and they would kind of just orient my shoulders just a little bit and get me down the road that I should be going on.
Tell me what that looks like. Tell me that story. Tell me about growing up.
Um, I grew up dirt poor. We got $300 a month in alimony from my dad, and that's three boys and my mom. And so I grew up knowing nothing but having to work hard. I mean, it started when we just moved. I'm 8 years old, and I would knock on people's doors. Now this is in Blaine, Washington. It's a border town right across from Canada, and there's an abundance of fruit there, fruit trees, and so I went and I would knock on people's doors and I would say, "Hey, or you have blueberries, or you have pears, or whatever they had," and I would say, "Do you mind if I pick your fruit before it goes bad?" And they'd be like, "Sure." We never have a chance to pick it anyway. So I would pick all their apples and I'd turn around and knock on the door again and I'd say, "Hey, do you want to buy some apples?" Okay. I had to do whatever I needed to bring in some extra money. I had paper routes. I took on two extremely rural paper routes when I was a kid, routes 705 and 707 for the Bellingham Herald. And there were routes that they were like, "These should be a car route." And I was like, "I don't care. I need the money. I don't have a car. I'm 12 years old." And so I started delivering Route 707, which was the most rural route that wasn't run by a car, but I didn't care. I took over my brother's Route 705, which was the adjoining route to it. And to buy our first bikes when we moved to Blaine, we were a border town, and the Canadians would throw out their bottles and cans before they would cross back over the border. And so there was a revenue source right there in those ditches, because I don't know if they still do it, but you could get a return for the deposit so that's how we bought our bikes to start out. And I was the youngest of three boys, and my brother he had some Mediterranean, or anyway, some sort of disease that stunted his growth. So you have, as three boys, you're going to have hand-me-downs. So it will go from my older brother to the middle to me, but he had this strange disease that he didn't grow for a year. And so he was always just a little bit shorter, but he would be, we would just every year we'd buy new clothes.
It's repeating the theme from when you're an adult, your clothes are shrinking. And when you're a kid, you had small clothes. You're just used to having clothes too small for you.
Yeah. So it went from hand-me-downs to hand-me-ups, because I'm the bottom of the totem pole and I'm getting clothes that are already an inch too short for my brother, and now they're 2 inches short for me. So I got called floodwaters going,
My younger brother, my brother, so I have two sisters and a brother. My younger brother's just a little under me. And when he started growing and hit his growth spurt, he grew like a weed, but all legs. So I'm like a torso. I have a big, long torso, and he's got super long legs. And same thing growing up, he'd get my pants, or even when my parents bought him pants, it seemed like it was in no time that they were too short for him. He just had long, long legs. So I get what you're saying, because I remember kids making fun of him and his long, lanky legs. So
So eventually, it was rather than doing, she would buy pants that were too long for us, and hem up the bottoms. And then when you'd get handed down, you could lengthen those. So, but anyway, it was, so I grew up with little to guide me. My mom was in her own head unable to handle raising three boys.
Well, it's got to be tough for anyone.
Yeah. And so for me, I was both of my other brothers they were very not like me. I would do the things that I wasn't a bad kid. I just wasn't like my brothers. And so the things that I would do would kind of get highlighted um as different than everybody else. So I kind of became, I would just do stupid stuff, and staying out too late, or I would um just a lot of different things and so,
Adventurous spirit of the three.
but it got to be a catch-22 where I would stay out so that I wouldn't go home and get yelled at, but I get yelled at for staying out. And we're as a kid, like 5 o'clock, right? My mom would walk around trying to find where I was hanging out this time. One time it was usually close to the school. It was one time I remember they were going to be building or putting some bark in somebody's yard, and I was walking home and I saw this bark, and I just stopped and I was just playing in the bark, and I was building different things, and 3:30 became 4:30 became 5:30, and I'm just completely lost. And here comes my mom. Where have you been? No cell phones, no texting. This is 1975, maybe 76. So there was no way to track my location. There was no text.
The moment. So what got you into coaching? How'd that come about?
Well, what got me into coaching was in those times when I was the misguided, or whatever you want to say. Nick Kruger and Russ Grant, they were that hand on my shoulder that I needed. And after all the stuff that I went through as a kid, I joined the Army, and after the Army, I went back to both Nick and to Russ, and I said, I can't thank you enough for everything that you did for me. How can I repay you? And I was thinking, I'll clean up your barn, I'll help you in your restaurant, I'll help you build whatever you need to build. And they both said, you can't repay us. There's no debt there. But they said, how you can honor us is when you have the opportunity to help somebody that you do. And I knew the type of coaches that I had, that I liked and that I didn't like. And so and the things that I liked about Nick and Russ, that I knew what type of coach I wanted to be. It was 4 years removed from being around coaches that I liked or didn't like. And so I knew who I wanted to be as a coach when I stepped onto the field or onto the court.
So who were these gentlemen to you?
They were both, Russ had horses. We lived in a trailer park, and he just had horses behind. And Nick was a guy that you'd miss your bus stop intentionally so you could get out at his driveway. and cut through just so that you could hear him. Luigi was how he just called all of the neighborhood kids. You were Luigi's. Didn't mean anything. It wasn't an actual word. It's just a pet name that he had for all of us. And he'd be in his barn, and you just wait for his high squeaky voice of, "Hey, Luigi." And
So he was just a neighborhood guy that kind of took the neighborhood kids and probably kept an eye on them while parents were out working.
not even that. He was just a guy that you could go and just hang out with. And you'd make sure your route went through his yard if you're going down to the corner store or off the bus or just to see what he's doing on a Saturday. He was just a guy that had the personality that you forgot that you were dirt poor, that you forgot. He didn't care about your background. He didn't care about anything except you and really uplifting who you were in that moment. And it just was always a positive guy to have around. And Nick was a guy that went to our church. I was in the same grade as his daughter Karen, and good friends with her older brother Todd. And so we went to the same church. I would find Nick in church and sit next to him.
So he became like a father figure to you.
He filled the need that I had, but I wouldn't really put the father figure because I wasn't around for a lot of those fathering moments, just in church or we go over to their house for lunch quite a bit, or, just hang out with Karen and Todd. But so I wouldn't classify him. He was somebody that I deeply admired. The way he lived his life, the way that he did a lot of things. I know I needed him there as a mentor. He mentored me without mentoring me. He was just there for those shift my shoulder moments, for just being some.
Do you credit Nick and Russ for your choice to join the service?
No. to be honest, I was just completely, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was in high school.
So what took you to the Army?
I had no idea. I just had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And so I went in there for 3 years, and I was able to kind of like Alexander Graham Bell when he was inventing the light, or Thomas Edison was when he was inventing the light, where he 1,000 times he got it wrong. And so this was, for me, that was one of those things. Well, check that one off. I know I don't want to be in the Army for life.
What was your MOS?
MOS was 26 Quebec, which was satellite and microwave communications.
So that taught you some good skills that you could take on the outside.
Completely away from this, can I take you down a story of stupidity?
Yeah, those are the best kind.
When I got out of the Army, I moved back to Ohio where my dad lived, and
where in Ohio?
At the time it was Boardman, Ohio.
Where's that at?
Near Youngstown.
Okay, east side.
Yes, and so I was fresh out of the Army, and I just hated the Army. And so I flew out to Washington, and I had a day timer that I would put a lot of stuff in. And so I flew out to Washington. Okay, fast forward 6, 7, 8 years. I'm not sure exactly how many. I am I'm moving and I find one of my old daytimers. I'm like, oh, that's what was all this? So I'm flipping through my daytimer, and and this business card falls out, and I was like, why do I? And I'm trying to think of the McCall. I had the business card for Macaw Cellular. I was like, why do I have the founder of Macaw Cellular? Why do I have his business card in my daytime? He was one of he was basically the founder of, he got bought out several times by AT&T, T-Mobile, or whoever. And I remembered, I was like, wait, this is when I was flying. And I remembered that I was flying next to this guy, flying coach, okay, where the guy to my left had said, we are setting up a company that uses microwave communications, and we're needing a lead technician like you, because I trained with microwave antennas. And I had such a bitter taste in my mouth that I was like, no, no. And this was like 1988. Okay. Like the beginning of cellular communications. And I sat next to the founder of all of it. And I turned down a front end job with the guy to help him set up all the network across the world. And probably one of the biggest, dumbest decisions I've ever made was not taking that opportunity.
I think we all have opportunities like that where someone comes into our life. I look at one. We were newlyweds, my wife and I. I was working at airport security at the Boise airport, and this predates what do they call it, TSA, and we're still 6 years away from 9/11, and so it was a private company that's just hired by the airport to do that, and so I'm standing there checking people through, and this gentleman who came through a few times, he comes through and he said, hands me his business card. He goes, "Hey, I'm the sheriff over in," can't remember if he said Bend or Baker, Oregon, one of those. And I was like, "Oh, nice to meet you, Sheriff." He goes, "Why don't you come have a cup of coffee with me sometime?" I made no thoughts about it. I was like, okay. And I took his card, never went. Didn't realize that was an opportunity that would probably have led me down my path a lot sooner than when I actually got on my path, my path in law enforcement. So I get what you're saying about like those missed opportunities. And then we have to wonder, like, and my wife and I were just talking about this morning, like, okay, well, if we took those opportunities, the different roads we would go down, versus the ones we did go down. So you went in the Army a few years, got out, and decided you wanted to coach. Were you an athlete in school?
Yeah. And then when I got to Seattle, it would just completely by chance. I was walking by this baseball field, and there's this coach that he's just yelling and screaming at these kids and doing everything that, in my opinion, a coach should not do. Embarrassing a player in front of his teammates, um, you know, cussing at the players, yelling, and expecting that that's going to motivate them, rather than how is did he think that belittling was going to make them better? Um, and so as I am cutting through this park on the way to my apartment, I just stopped and I was like, "Hey, do you need an assistant coach? Is there anything that I can do to help?" And he's like, Yeah, if you want to coach these losers, he didn't, those weren't his exact words, but that's what he said. And he said it in front of all these kids. If somebody had written a coaching manual, uh, he would have read it backwards and, make sure that you yell at the kids, make sure you belittle, make sure you embarrass. He was doing everything that I knew me as a player that I would be like, I would shut down. I had a mom that yelled and screamed at me. Okay. I made it so that I could tune that out. I had drill sergeants that would yell at everybody. Well, guess what didn't work on me as a player, as a soldier? Didn't do anything for me. So when I went to coach these kids, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I, there were some players that, um, that, that I think about every day, just how just one moment something happened that, that I was able to change their lives. I had, um, I took our catcher and moved him to shortstop. Our shortstop, I moved to first. Our first baseman, I moved to catcher. I just took those three players and just kind of slid them around. And they had the tall guy that they thought had a lot of range. They had him at short. I moved him to first, where he had a lot more range, where, I want the ball out of your glove quickly. And as accurate as the target of the range of your first baseman. And so I could work on their accuracy, but I wanted these guys to just get a quick release. Don't get it and admire it. Get it and get rid of it.
Right.
Okay. So that's what I wanted from my infielders, was a guy that was a big target. I took the guy that, they always put the least athletic person at first. Well, I had a different philosophy where I wanted the worst athlete at catcher. Sorry, Cal Raleigh. But then I took the catcher, who was just an absolute bulldog. No pitch got past this dude, but I wanted that mentality at short. So I took him and I moved him to short. He was the most picked on kid on the team. And so for him to go out there to short was, for me, I felt like it was also a chance for him to prove, because a ball gets past you, you get another ball. Okay. At catcher, a ball gets past you at short, you get another run, you get another 2 runs.
Right.
So I wanted somebody,
Very key position in the game.
Yeah. And so I wanted somebody who hated failure, because that's who everybody viewed him.
Right.
And so I put him there at short, and the dude absolutely thrived, where he wouldn't let anything get past him. And so I've always kind of, where would I want to play if I was that? So I did that, and I used not just their athleticism, but their mentality. Okay. And I took the guy, anyway. So with this kid, he was a kid that was picked on by everybody, but moving him to short kind of made him feel more respected as an athlete. And he really proved, and he really earned his keep there. And, so just before the start of the season, the coach quit, 24 hours before the game.
Oh my gosh. So you got in on the team when it was still spring training, if you will, for lack of a better way to put it.
And they hadn't won a game in a couple of years.
High school team was
No, it was just a community team,
little rec team.
and but they hadn't won in at least 2 years. I can remember that, but I think it was more than that. It was rare that they would score a run.
Right.
And so he always, I think he would just set it up so that he could always be yelling at the kids. I don't know. So we got slaughtered the first game. I think they had like a 12-run rule at the time, which now is a 10-run rule. And they had, after 5 innings, they were up by at least 17, and we didn't even score. We didn't even come close to scoring. And then the second game, we were close. We actually scored, and you'd never seen kids so excited that they'd actually scored a run.
No, I know that feeling.
But so we actually had a lead in that game up until things just didn't go our way. And I wanted to see where they were as a team. And so there is a hedge right before walking from my apartment. There was this hedge that I hid behind, and all the kids would be dropped off over here, so they couldn't see me coming up to the field. So I'm walking up, and I wish I could say this was all part of the master plan with these kids, but it was just going with the moment and going with my gut instinct. And so as I'm walking up, I was like, I'm going to see who these kids are, because I got them to be there, not dropped off 10 minutes after practice has started and apologizing. They knew that they had to, if you're going to start, if you want to play on this team, you have to be here on time. That's the easiest controllable. And so I decided I'm going to show up late, and I hide behind this hedge, and I am listening to the team talk. And it's about 2 or 3 minutes after, and our little shortstop, Justin, he says, "Guys, let's get up and start warming up, because coach would want us to be warmed up." And amid the moans and groans, he got them all out there and gets them warming up. And so I walk out from behind the hedge, and I recognize the voice. I knew it was Justin. And he has them all in a circle warming up. Normally, I would pick somebody out because I want everybody to experience what it's like to lead. And so I walk up, and I'm like, "Who got you guys warming up?" And I made sure that I sounded like I was kind of angry. And I was like, "Who got you guys to warm up?" And so everybody thinks they're getting Justin in trouble.
Right.
And they're all like, Justin did. And so I was like, "Justin, get over here." And he runs over there. And I said, "Did you get these players warming up?" And he's like, yes, I did." And I'm a big body language type of person when I'm evaluating a player. I'm not just evaluating their skills or anything else. I'm looking at their eye,
Carry themselves.
their body language, their eye contact. These are all things that I am trying to learn about where they are in their head. Okay. So he comes over, and he's not defiant. He isn't defensive. And he said, "Yes, I did." And then I said, "And who normally gets these players lined up and doing," and this will tell you how long ago I called them calisthenics. So I was like, "Who got you guys doing calisthenics?" And who normally does that? And he says, "Well, you do, coach." And I said, "And who's the coach around here?" He's like, "You're the coach." And I said, "And who's the captain around here?" And it was the only time that he broke eye contact, because he's trying to process what I said. And I remember this moment so vividly because he looked down and he's like, he didn't have an answer. And I said, "You're the captain. Keep him going."
You know, that's so powerful when you think about it, because you went from a situation when you went on the team, the boys, from what you were describing, were pretty much broken because all they were going to get when they showed up to practice was yelled at. So why be on time? Why be early? They didn't want to be yelled at for, however long practice is, 2 hours. Their coach treated them like crap. And then you came to them and you transitioned how they saw themselves. Justin was the runt of the pack, so he was getting bullied and pushed around. But when you put him in a position that one probably suited his skill better, but also helped boost his self-worth and self-value, because now he's not just hiding in the back of the box. He has that front center. The shortstop's one of the main positions on the team. And I'm going to disagree with you, because I think the two main positions are shortstop and catcher, because a good catcher has the view of the whole field, but
Every single position is the most valuable one on the team.
right. But you get what I'm saying.
But it was like you said, I didn't do it. He did it. He's the one that said, "I can be that guy."
Right.
And we needed somebody to be that guy,
Right.
because we were coming around athletically, we were coming around mentally, and we needed something to kind of tie everything together.
But it wasn't
gonna. I could do so much, but I've always felt like it had to be the player-led team. That is now the common phrase, but I've always felt like it had to be a player-led team.
Right.
And so we took the runt of the litter, and he became the leader of the pack. And you could see a transformation of him, like, personally.
right. And it wasn't that the guys didn't have the skill sets. They had the skill set. It was bringing their skill set into their mentality, into their believing themselves that they have that skill set. And that's one of the first important key lessons, I think, that we can get out of mentorship and get it put into when we're trying to mentor people, is like helping them understand, I am capable. I do have this skill set. I am able to do this. Because that self-doubt that we all have is going to be a loud voice to tell us that you can't do this. Why try? Why push yourself? But once we have someone cheering us on, someone believing us, someone pointing out our value and our worth, then we're able to really show that, hey, I do have the mentality and I do have the skill set to push this forward.
Yeah, and the things that I always say, sometimes all a kid needs is somebody to believe in them, or sometimes all a kid needs is an opportunity, or sometimes all a kid needs is somebody to buy into them. And the team saw that I bought into him, and they bought into him. And you saw a fish in water.
Yeah, for sure.
The team before that had been a fish on a bicycle. And so that, the team had all of the physical tools. And it just was, for me, after I watched him get back out there, get into that, and watch him coach kids up, okay, where they knew that when I was talking, it was me talking, and they respected that. And with him, when he was talking, they respected that. And there was another player that became the true straw that stirred the drink, but that was such an important moment, I think, for him in his life, and for me, when I watched him go back over there, I wish I could call it all part of the plan. I went with the moment, and I went over there, and I have my coach's clipboard, and I'm trying to act like I'm making practice notes or anything, but I'm just over there just enjoying and listening to these kids grow like I don't know that they had grown before in a big moment like that. It was such a big moment for me as a coach to, because like I was saying earlier, I always knew what kind of coach I wanted to be. And I wanted to have that connection where those kids looked at me like I looked at Russ Grant, like I looked at Nick Kruger, as a strong, caring figure that was bought into them. Because that's all I wanted, was somebody to buy into me. And so
That's all we ever want. That's all anybody wants, is someone to, you had the experience, and we've talked about this before, and we didn't go into much detail on it this morning, but you didn't lose your dad. Your parents separated. Your mom moved you and the boys to Washington. Your dad was still back in Ohio. And I mean, you even mentioned a little bit that you would go back and see him there after you got in the military. But having that person buy into you, especially when it's someone who doesn't have to buy into you, but they make those choice, Russ and Nick, and then you taking that gift and passing it on forward to Justin and to the rest of those boys, it helps you feel that worth. When somebody says, you are worth my time, you are worth my energy, and all you're, in my opinion, and maybe you're asking something else, it's not, now show me the respect and show me that I'm worth your time and energy. I try to look at it, show me that you believe you are worth that time, energy. And that's when you see that mental switch flip where.
And it comes down to trust. Okay. I showed them that I was buying into them. Okay. Which creates trust. So, that's one of the biggest things of my philosophy on coaching. Coaching the fear out of kids is the name of my book. And it's when you have that level of trust, it makes everything possible. When they trust that when they can go out and screw up, that they're not going to be belittled, they're not going to be embarrassed, that they're going to be coached up from that point. And I never, I think that when you can get that trust out of them, you can push them a lot harder than a coach that just yells.
Sure.
Okay, because
you mentioned your book, Coaching the Fear Out of Kids, and that comes out soon, right? That comes out hopefully about the time this airs in July. So tell us about your book and your philosophy, because we've talked about this, and you've sent me some screenshots that look like a repeating Venn diagram almost to me. But show me some of your philosophies there, and share that with us.
Well, and the thing, and it is almost, this is in my book, but you remember the old
Venn diagram. Sorry, I can't think of what it's called right now, but it's a yes button, no button type diagram.
What it is, you remember the old trust fall where somebody stands there and they fall back, and it's supposed to build trust. It's supposed to get you let go and build trust with the people around you. In sports, I call it a trust fail, where I I break that barrier of protection that the amygdala, sorry to go all scientific, but the amygdala in your brain is designed for protection. It wants to keep you in a comfort zone.
It's early on a Saturday morning. I'm all set for early neuroscience. So yeah, let's go.
So the amygdala is there for almost exclusively for protection. And that's the common term that they use is for protection. It is designed to keep you in your comfort zone. The thing about, and especially in young athletes, their mind is, they don't have, they call them grooves in psychology, but they don't have the grooves worn in. They're not as ensconced as they are later on in life, where the fears are fairly locked in. So you have a huge opportunity to disengage that fear and replace it with trust, because fear doesn't just, you don't get 50% fear. You either have fear or you don't.
Right.
Okay. And the fear has to be replaced. And the way that, as a coach, as those guys that I respected, the coaches that I wanted to be like, the men that I wanted to be like, it was love, trust, and confidence. That's how you replace fear.
So when you're saying coaching the fear out of kids, you're not talking about coaching them where they're not afraid to hit someone anymore, as in football or wrestling.
No, it's purely the fear of failure.
Fear of failure, and it's the fear of trusting people.
Yeah, and because there are a lot of things that where that applies later on in life. But as a coach, people always ask me, why do I get such instant results out of the kids? And it's building that love, that trust, and that confidence. Okay. And when you can do that, because the biggest inhibitor to peak performance is fear, because you can't create relentless players and you can't create fearless players with fear still being intact. So you have to replace that as a coach. You have to go in there, and I'm not talking about going soft on the kids and not driving them hard, because I think it all makes it possible. Because my follow-up book to this is called Love Hard, Coach Harder. Okay. Because when you can have that trust and you can have that relationship with the kids, you can drive them so much harder, because they know it's out of love, not out of my own ego. I'm not trying to chalk up wins on the scoreboard. I'm trying to chalk up wins with you. And so we go through this trust fail process where I start out with small little fails where they're set up so that it doesn't feel like a failure, but with me and my response to whatever they do. In baseball, I'll have a kid, whatever, stand in an area, and I'll hand him a ball, and I'm like, let's see how far you can throw that. And then I act impressed. Okay. But I watch and study their body language, like I was saying. Do they watch where it lands, or are they immediately looking back at me? That I read those reactions right there to their throw. And I'll hand them another ball. And I was like, that's a pretty good one, but I think you can do better. And so I let them throw another one. And again, I won't care. I don't even watch the ball. I'm studying the player and how they throw it with more confidence. If they're like, oh, I'm going to really do this one, I'll read all of those things to see how they respond to me. It's a response, and what this tells me what type of connection I have with the player. Okay. And then I'll give them a third one, and I'll be like, man, that was pretty good, but you got a little bit more in the tank. And so I'll have them throw another one. And again, don't look at the ball. Don't look at the result. Look at the behavior. That is what is important at this point in the process. Look at their behavior, their responses, that gives you an insight to who you have as a player and how you develop them along the process. So then I give them a ton of power and I said, "Man, that was amazing. I cannot wait to coach you." Okay? And that's where they know that I've bought into them. And when I have bought into them, you start to, because every player, regardless of the level, they have some sort of fear. Okay. Fear of, am I going to perform to his expectations? And so when I buy into them and I tell them, I'm going to be coaching you hard, I can't wait to coach you, those words matter to the kids. And when they hear those words, this guy is excited about me and I've failed, that you get instant results out of that. And then so you're building, and I have to have it right here. It's how they react. And then you're going through the process of, you're going through those fails all over again in different levels of practice. And you're trying to rewire their brain further to where they have more trust, they have more love, they have more confidence, and you keep taking them through the different levels of failure so that you're rewiring their brain, so that after that, then you can begin to refine the skills. Because I'm not worried about refining skills. I'm trying to create relentless effort.
So do you think the key to getting an athlete to buy into the team is to have them buy in, is to show them that you've bought into them first?
No, they have to buy into themselves.
Right. But
and how they do that is me buying into them. So the answer to your question is yes, but it comes with an asterisk. You have to buy into them and you have to trust them. You have to love them and you have to have confidence, and they have to feel that from you. It's not the other way around. You don't wait until they love you.
maybe I'm not asking the question correctly. Do you feel as if, teams, when you join a team, there is an expectation for results. There's an expectation for drive. There's an expectation for these things. But to get them to want to put that effort out, they have to feel like the team is buying into them as an individual as well first.
I'm
Does that make sense?
It does. That to me isn't, because that's a cultural thing that you have to build along the way as well, because you're not just building a player, individual players, you are building a culture. And I won't tolerate anything that I expect the behavior that I encourage. The love, trust, comfort extends from player to player, but it's not something that I.
Well, let's go back to your baseball team, the first team that you really took on coaching in. Okay, you shifted the players around, and now here's Justin that was played catcher. He felt like he didn't have much value of the team. That's how the team kind of mocked him and made fun of him. You're just the catcher. You're back there, blah, blah, blah. But when you brought him to shortstop, you're buying into him, saying, I have trust that you are more than just the catcher, right? And then by putting that trust in him, now he's buying into himself, like, oh, I can provide to this team.
And you're right. I do exactly see where you're going. And yes, it is buying into him, because that was such a big moment for our team. And it was important to the culture of the team. So yes, I certainly do agree. But in general, on teams that I coach, I make sure that the culture is being built along with the individual players. So yes, I never really thought of it that way. But yeah, the players have to buy into each other, but that's buying into me and my culture, or the coach and the culture.
So what would you describe your culture as?
fearless, relentless. Nick Saban has a saying when I interviewed him for the documentary, the Don James documentary called The Dogfather. He said, kids won't care what you know until they know that you care.
Right.
And for me, that I guess I've kind of always known that the love, trust, confidence has to go to them first. In order for them to buy into you, you have to buy into them first. And my entire thing is always I never focused on the results. I focused on effort and fearlessness. That I've always felt like that is how we will ultimately measure ourselves, because 99.9, actually 100% of the kids, 99.9% of the kids that I've coached did not go on to playing pro sports, but they are pro dads. They are pro moms. They are pro business people. That's where they're going.
Success, they've accomplished their own success, building upon the steps that you gave them. And that saying, the kids won't know, or people won't know.
They won't know you care until they won't care what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah. And I think that's such a valuable point, because we can spout our knowledge all day long, and it runs off water like a duck's back until people understand that, like, hey, I'm not just giving you this. I'm teaching you a life lesson here, and I'm trying to share this because I love you and I care for you. Just like those two gentlemen that helped raise you, and filled that void, is like, they probably could have told you anything, and I'm sure they taught you a lot of things, but you knew where it was coming from. It was coming from a place of love and a place of wanting what was best for you. Now, at times you may not have agreed with that, right? Like when our kids were telling them, hey, don't hang out with those people. Don't be going to those certain places. And they're like, F you, what do you know? And then over time they see that, like, oh, he wasn't saying that because he just wants to be a jerk. He was saying that because he cares about me and my life and the direction I want to go down.
Oh, yeah. But you go back and watch. There's a video where Doug Peterson, the coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, was coached by the same coaches as me in middle school and high school. Okay, we're both from the same hometown. You go back and you watch what he does just before the Super Bowl game starts. And he goes out there and he's like, man, we're going to hit them harder than they're not going to know what. No, actually, no, he's not. He's going out there and he says, I love you, man. He goes around and he's hugging his players, and that's his only message. I love you, man. Okay. Because the trust and the confidence is already there. And that was the rocket fuel to the peak performance right there, because they had no fear. You look at the Philly special play that they ran. They were like, we're going to do this and we're going to surprise people. And I have enough confidence in you that if it doesn't work, we're going to find another way to win. Okay. And it was that love, trust, confidence that he had, that he showed his players, that there's that time building up to the games where players get in their own heads. In big moments, they get into their own heads, and to hear the coach come up and say, I love you, man.
Well, and that's so powerful, because, and it's not just players, it's everybody in life, where we get to a point where we get into our own heads and we lose that faith and confidence in ourselves, that for someone, a coach, a spouse, a friend, a close confidant, when they come up to us and, you know, a mentor and even a mentee that you're helping comes and says, "Hey, I love you, value, and appreciate you." And it helps hit that reset button that like, okay, I know what I can do. I know what I'm doing, you know, and you know, I've had that several times coaching with my football team or people I've worked with when I was in law enforcement, that you feel like and just being a parent, you feel like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing this. All of a sudden someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, you made a difference. You're doing something." It helps set that reset button like, okay, things are working out, things are going the right way.
Yeah, and it's all part of that trust feel process.
Right.
Um, where I continually, um, as each time they go through an iteration of going around the circle of where they start out with monitor the reaction, we're rewiring their brain, we refine their skills, um, then you've built resilience, okay, by all of those, the process. You're building up immunity to fear, okay, and that's how you get them to be relentless. And that's, for me, ultimately the goal is to play harder than the other team thinks they're capable of. I can't tell you how many kids or play teams that I've coached that just in the fourth quarter, while the other team is not mentally tough, we are mentally tough. And I tell them, this is where we separate from them. This is where we put the pressure on them, and they are so mentally worn down, or they're physically worn down, and that wears down the brain. And that's where we're going to have that separation from the other players, is that they're not as mentally tough as you guys. Win, let's crush them respectfully, but let's crush them right here.
Right. No, that's such a valuable point. Mike, you've got a lot of projects coming out, and I'm excited to have you back on the show to talk about those other ones. And I think this is just a great point. Tell us about your book now, that's coming out this month, and let's pump that up.
I have two. The one that we're mainly talking about here today is coaching the fear out of kids.
If you're out of kids.
And it really just kind of, you know, I've had, and I'm not saying me being successful as a coach, but I've had a lot of success with players and a process that I go through that people would ask me all the time, how did you flip that kid? How did you do this? And what would happen was that I kept on, I would fix a kid in the middle of the season. And this is when I got out of coaching and I started doing individual coaching. And I would flip a kid and got them from where they were gun shy, that they weren't afraid to go out and shoot. And so I was able to then get them back into their teams, and it would last for 3 or 4 games, and then they would regress. And what I was coaching was the kids, and I was coaching the kids' minds, but I wasn't coaching the coaches. Okay. They were going right back into the environment, into the culture, into the coaches' philosophies. And with this book, what it's designed to do is to actually go all the way back to the beginning and try to give this to the coaches, to give the tools so that they understand what they're doing, so that instead of, creating that cycle that I was in of where you coach him and then, let him play games for a couple, and he has a couple of strong games. I want to get kind of all the way back to the beginning, and so that we can build a new process and a new philosophy of rather than, trying to drive that square peg into the round hole, that the hole aligns with whatever peg you have. Your philosophy of coaching is in line with your coaching knowledge. There are no X's and O's in this book. This is just looking at the Jimmies and the Joes.
Well, that's a very important part of it that you get to, that I'm glad you're getting to it, because I think it matters that before we get down to the X's and O's, we have to get to the individual and build that relationship to the X's and O's. So the book is called Coaching the Fear Out of Kids. And I know for me that as I take on coaching and being with my team this next season, I'm learning a lot. I'm going to look for this book because it's something I know will help me be a better coach, and helping these kids, they're adults, but helping them understand their value to the team. And because I've always believed one of the most important things to get out of a player is to help them see their value, or to help them get a buy into the team. But you shared with me something that I don't know if I looked at it the same way. I think on a different scale, but before I can get them to buy into the team, I need to let them know that I have a buy-in on them. And that's so important. What's the other book you have coming out?
The other one is 30 Days to Becoming the You God Intended. And that was my 271 pounds moment. And there's another thing on the people that I have mentored, that I've always had, a process for that. And it's a 30-day guide. It's scripturally based. It's neurologically based. And it has a ton of just opportunities and my wife and I right now, we're writing the follow-up to it, 30 Days to Becoming the Couple God Intended. And it's really kind of taking that process and making it so that it's in a digestible chunk. Every day is important. And where you write your why, and that's the purpose for me. But then in the couples book is your combined why.
Right.
And then you have one start, one stop, one sacrifice. And it's something that you stop doing, some behavior that you want to change, as something that you want to start doing, and then something that is really giving it meaning to everything. And that's the sacrifice. And for me, that was Starbucks. And I would go there and I get a venti mocha frappuccino with no whipped cream, one pump of mocha, and an extra shot of espresso blended in. Okay. And it's as expensive as it is complicated.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so here I was, no whipped cream because I don't want that fat in me. Okay. And then I would order the chocolate pistachio loaf. Okay. So the man that was in the mirror, that I could not make eye contact with the person in the mirror. And I had gotten so far off purpose. The mirror was just purely a reflection of how adrift I had gone from my purpose. And that's what, for me, the purpose of what God intended me to be. And that is what I promised Nick and Russ, that when I had the chance to help people, that I would. And so that's what this book is 40 years of helping people and finally documenting the process. And a lot of it has been instinctive along the way, because there's going to be a lot of that, but there's a lot of stuff that is neurological that or even stuff that is aligned with scriptures and how the scriptures align with the neuroscience that is just now going, yeah, they were kind of right back 2,000 years ago. So that's kind of where the book kind of helps you align with your purpose. And the thing that I say in there, it has to be actionable. It means can you start on it today?
Right.
Is it so you want to make sure that the things that you want to stop and you want to start and that you want to sacrifice is something that is attainable. Okay, it's actionable, it's attainable, and there has to be an accountability part to this. Okay, and you're accountable to yourself. So in the book, there's a journaling part. Okay, so what does all of this stuff mean here? And you say this is every day you go through a different level of emotion, and you're going like this through the entire process, and those are exactly the spots that you're supposed to be. You're supposed to feel this way. So every day I have a theme of what I have experienced going through this process of going from 271 pounds to where today I'm 217, and I'm going to keep going. But it has to be actionable, it has to be attainable, and you have to be accountable. Okay. And in this, there's a lot of self accountability, but it's in journaling. Okay. And when you get to the end of the day and you did like, oh man, I went to Starbucks and that was one of the things that I was supposed to sacrifice, and you end up feeling like crap. Okay. And so you're on the dip part of things. Okay. But it's all like, if you look closely at the stock market, you're going to see it going like this. This gives you the ability to step back from the stock market and not see it go like this, but actually see it going like this, where it's trending up.
I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss when it comes to any lifestyle change is, oh crap, I went to Starbucks, or, I went to the all you can eat Chinese buffet, or, wherever. And we beat ourselves up about those slight missteps, or I didn't wake up and work out this morning. And that sends us mentally spiraling like, oh, I'm falling so far behind. But I like the point you make in comparing it to the stock market, that like you're going to be on that continual trajectory, and there's going to be ups and downs, highs and lows. And I think that's an important life lesson too, that like we go through valleys and we go through peaks and valleys and, troughs and stuff like that, or we plateau, but that doesn't mean we're not moving up. We're not moving up as fast as we want, but I think your book, for those that are of a spiritual nature and stuff like that, it should ring true to them that like, hey, God, the creator, the universe, whatever it is, has a plan for you. And here's 30 steps in the next 30 days to help you realize your purpose, your mission. Yours is to be coaching and helping people grow that way. I find my mission, my purpose is one, doing this, helping people see the value of mentorship, but also helping people to see that like the value of human connection is really when you get down to it. So I appreciate you being here with us today. 30 days to becoming the you God intended, and coaching the fear out of kids. That's the one I'm most excited about right now. I'm excited for both of them. We'll put links to them where you can find them, and please make sure you get yourself a copy. And thank you so much for watching the Mentor Sessions. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and tell us about a mentor in your life or someone who helped coach the fear out of you. I'd love to hear those comments down in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching today.